So, it's fairly common knowledge that if you're looking to get a new 5x5, the Yuxin 5x5 and Bochuang GT are your best options. A little while ago, the Shangshao 5x5 was actually a consideration for many people as their first 5x5, back when the next best option was the Aochuang, coming in at around $20 more than the Shangshao. However, times have changed, and now the two best performing 5x5s on the market are only about $10 more than the Shangshao on cubes per speed, which really isn't that much. The obvious next question about these two is, which one should you get? Well, let's take a look. The way this comparison will work is fairly simple. Each cube's grade will be broken up into 5 categories: turning and feel, corner cutting, lockups and pops, performance and solves, and finally other factors. Each category will be evaluated based on a number of different factors, and the total amount of points that can be earned in each category is 10, making the highest total score a cube can receive a 50. The turning of the Yuxin 5x5 is controllable, scratchy, bubbly, and is definitely comparable to the feeling of the Yuxin 3x3 and 4x4. Additionally, at least after looping, it feels like the pieces are moving around too much inside, giving it a slight rattling sound, which is definitely a downside to the turning of the cube. Finally, the turning of the inner layers is significantly slower and smoother than the outer layers, and this inconsistency has also been a negative. The Bochuang GT is very different. When I first unboxed this cube, I felt that it was a bit too fast for my liking, but after breaking it with a few hundred solves and looping both the core and pieces, the Bochuang is extremely smooth, controllable, and is the perfect speed for me. All the layers feel nearly the same, with the only difference being that the outer layers are slightly bumpy, whereas the inner layers are slightly crispy. However, both layers do seem to have the same speed and controllability, which makes inner to outer layer turns a breeze, and is a huge plus over the Yuxin. So for turning, the Yuxin gets an 8 out of 10, and the Bochuang gets a 10 out of 10. The corner cutting of the Yuxin is mediocre. For regular corner cutting, it can go up to 1 piece, which isn't really that much, but even then I have to force it a little. Reverse isn't that great either, but as 5x5s go, it's not really that bad. The Bochuang can cut about 1 piece forward as well, but with much less effort. Any farther, and you'll most likely get a pretty nasty lockup. Reverse isn't quite as good as on the Yuxin and takes a bit more force, but it doesn't seem to really affect the fluidity of the cube, so this round, these two cubes both receive a 9 out of 10. The Yuxin doesn't really get any of those nasty lockups that so many 5x5s are notorious for getting. It really seems to have a sturdy core, and the inner layers move around without much of a problem. However, this sturdiness doesn't seem to transfer to the outer layers, and this is where the vast majority of the catches on this cube occur. The outer layers really just seem to be sitting on top of the rest of the cube and perform differently, which results in lots of small outer layer catches and lockups, and this is one of my main problems with this cube. As I mentioned before, there is a possibility of getting an awful 5x5 lockup when using the Bochuang GT. However, they are much rarer than they were with the Shangshao or even the Aochuang, and so aren't as much of a nuisance. While I have gotten 1 pop on the Yuxin and 2 on the Bochuang, that was out of around 350 solves, and so I think it's fairly safe to say that neither of these cubes have a problem with popping. So for this category, the Yuxin receives an 8 out of 10, and the Bochuang gets a 9 out of 10. During solves, the Yuxin 5x5 seems to really showcase its flaws, at least for me. The catching increases, and the difference in the way the two layers turn frustrates me even more. For this reason, my times are significantly higher on the Yuxin than what I average. On the other hand, when solving with the Bochuang, most of the problems that I mentioned it had before seem to diminish, and my solves become much faster and more fluid. And for this reason, the Bochuang GT is my main 5x5. So for overall performance, I'm giving the Yuxin a 7 out of 10 and the Bochuang a 10 out of 10. Before we take a look at the final scores, we do have one more category to go over: other factors. Starting off with price, the Yuxin can be purchased for $16 at cubes per speed, which is $3 lower than the $19 price tag that the Bochuang holds. While this does give it a slight advantage, it is very slight, and I don't think it really makes a difference. The only other thing that I want to mention in this category is the stability of these two cubes. I hinted at this earlier, but the Bochuang GT is extremely stable. I wasn't so impressed with it out of the box, but lubing it seemed to do something magical to the Bochuang, massively increasing its stability. The Yuxin, unfortunately, is not nearly as stable, which once again seems to be the result of the different turning between layers. So for the final category, the Yuxin comes in at an 8 out of 10 and the Bochuang is a 9 out of 10. So adding the scores up, the Yuxin's final grade is a 40 out of 50 with an average score of an 8 out of 10. A B isn't that terrible, but when compared to the Bochuang's 47 out of 50, I think there's a pretty clear winner. So that being said, I would completely recommend the Bochuang to anyone who is looking for their first 5x5 or even an upgrade from an old one. That's pretty much it for this comparison video. I'd like to thank CubesForSpeed for allowing me to test the Moyu Bochuang GT, the winning cube in this video. CubesForSpeed is a fantastic store with great prices and extremely fast shipping. Also, if you haven't already, be sure to check out their new line of custom cut stickers. Finally, the links where you can buy both of these cubes will be in the description. Thanks for watching, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!